this whole series that you're going to hear over the next hour or so is strategies for AI adoption. And so you'll hear different speakers talk about kind of the real world and how they're playing in the local economy, in the Canadian economy, what they're seeing, and what businesses really need in order to adopt AI. So John, for example, is going to follow me, and he'll hit some concrete things as well. So that's kind of the theme of the whole thing. Yeah. So in the back, we're good. In terms of it too loud, too soft? Okay, we're okay. Okay, perfect. So thanks for coming this morning. I don't know about you, but I've had a really good experience here at the summit. And so, I've been really enjoying my time here. So my talk's about how small businesses can actually adopt AI. And I just want to talk you through some of the real world experiences. I'm Tony Sheehan. I'm from Northbound Advisory. My partner is in the second row, Bob, and we do consulting for small, medium businesses and help them adopt AI. All right. So what we're seeing on the street basically is that there's tons of powerful tools out there. Like the things you can do today, you couldn't even really imagine 5 years ago. And this is all available to small, medium business, right? Like a few years ago, the realm of AI was not within reach at all of small, medium business. But now, like all of these massive tools are available. These leading edge frontier LLMs are available to companies. But it's not easy for them to adopt it. That's what we're finding. And I want to talk about why that is over our time. So access is easy, but adoption is a much harder story than that. So the reality check for most companies in Atlantic Canada is that they're still at a very, very low level of maturity. And when I say most companies, we focus on companies, say, from 50 people to 300 people, that kind of range, small, medium business. What we're finding is when we walk in there, we ask them, do you have an AI policy? And they're like, well, they either have two answers. They're like, yeah, we have a policy, but like the IT department has it somewhere. We haven't really paid much attention to it. Or we have or we don't have a policy at all. And they don't even really understand what we mean by policy. And so policies are important because it allows your employees to understand what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do with AI. What tools they're allowed to use, what tools they're not allowed to use, what data they can put in them, what data they can take out of them and use, and how they can use that data. We're also finding that they don't have any formal training for the most part. 80% of companies we walk into say, yeah, we've got AI. We bought Microsoft Copilot. Okay, awesome. Does anyone know how to use Microsoft Copilot? And they're just like, well, some guys are playing around with it, kind of thing. But that's about it, right? Then we find some employees are keeners. You always get the 10% that are keeners, and they're often using like ChatGPT off to the side. So you've got that kind of like shadow IT effect going on. But in honesty, like most of them are just unsure about what to do with AI. That's the bottom line. So this is kind of the funnel, right? They've got curiosity at the beginning and they want to get to real impact. But where they're getting stuck is right in the middle. They're exploring, but they're really not adopting. We see lots of pilots happening, very few success stories, and very few like breakthrough moments for staff to be more efficient. And that's what we really want, right? We want efficiency. There's a reason we're trying to adopt these tools, and they're getting stuck right in the middle. So I want to talk about how to get unstuck. And I'm going to talk about 3 specific lessons. They're not complicated, but I think it's just really some simple stuff that every company can do. So the first lesson is everyday AI adoption. You've got the tools, you've already bought them for the most part, you're just not using them or not using them right. So that number 1 is AI policy. Get a simple policy together. And if you have one, great, let's have a look at it. If you don't have one, what we want is a policy that's clear language, something that people can actually understand. You don't want to build a document for the SOC 2 auditors to go look at. You want to build a document that your employees can actually use, and it tells them the rules of the road. Then you have to know what tools you're allowed to use for what purpose, right? So, okay, you've decided on Copilot, perfect. What are you allowed to use it for? So if you're an insurance company and you do a certain workflow, can I use that data in the workflow? Well, it depends. Well, what does it depend on? Well, it depends on the type of data. If it's like sensitive data, am I allowed to put it in? If it's not sensitive, so you have to kind of walk them through that and make them understand what's there. And then finally, like job-specific training. So if you're going to roll out a tool and you're going to spend a lot of money on it, you got to have people trained. It only makes sense. It's only fair, right? So, tell them what the rules of the road are, tell them what tools they're allowed to use for what job, and then give them the training to actually go and do that. Simple stuff, right? But a lot of people aren't doing it. Lesson number 2 really is on going beyond just everyday use and getting into processes. So when Bob and I go into a company, we go through this process called value stream mapping with them. Sounds fancy, but it's really just like, show me your most important critical processes and let's deep dive into it. So we'll do like a half-day workshop. We'll pick one of their critical value streams. We'll talk about the key performance indicators, like what's going to move your business, what's going to move the needle. If we change this one metric, what does that mean to you in dollars? Is it going to really move the needle for you? And so we go through this process, we map out the key performance indicators, we do a quick high-level value stream mapping. This identifies friction areas, places where the process is breaking down for some reason, and then we identify places where AI and automation could help in some way. Again, simple stuff like understand your workflow, understand what's going to move your business, and then look for opportunities. Once you have those opportunities, you stack rank them, right? So get a list of them, and it's no different than anything else. You're looking for the low-hanging fruit that's going to be the most effective for your business. So you want things that is high business value and low effort. Second best would be high effort, but oftentimes it's just like a just go do it thing. It's a no-brainer. It's obvious, right? And it becomes obvious to the company as well. But I can't tell you how many companies Bob and I have gone into, and you throw that process up on the wall, and they're just like, I've never seen my business on the wall like this. And it's not hard. It doesn't take that much time, and it's very illuminating for them. And it really crystallizes things really quickly. Yeah, so really those are the 3 lessons, right? Like we get it. The third thing really is we want a quick win, right? So get that quick win. I think I'll go back here because what you want to get is that quick win. So after you've decided on the thing you want to do, you go and implement it. And what we've seen is like you don't have to boil the ocean. It's usually something in a critical process that is, again, it's achievable. It's usually high business value, medium effort, and it's going to really move the needle. So you pick that, and Bob and I usually go and we implement it. Our team goes and implements an actual, usually there's an element of data cleanup, usually there's an element of automation, and then there's usually an element of AI. But what we're finding is in most companies, their data story is a little rough. They may have stuff in spreadsheets, sticky notes, some form of system that they're using or series of systems. And it's just a matter of like identifying those areas. We don't go in trying to sell anything. We're just trying to understand, right? So once we do that project and we do get that quick win, then we move on to the next thing. So really just prove value and iterate. So again, just to recap, everyday adoption is get your policy in place, get your approved tools list, get some training, and then move on to more high value things. So we find that you're going to get an uplift just by using the tools you have. Like if everyone knows what they're supposed to use and how to use it, you're going to get an uplift. Like lots of people in this audience use ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, and you're getting a bit of an uplift. If you've invested in training or you're really curious, you get even more of an uplift. And I think you can just get that across your company if you do that one thing. Then dig into your business, understand your processes, understand the pain points, and get a quick win. Often people are stuck not getting that first quick win. So, don't try to do this giant project that's like a year long. Like do a project that's like a month to 90 days long and get that quick win and then build on that success. Then measure, then repeat. So you want to know, like, is it actually moving the needle? If it's not moving the needle, adjust and get that first quick win. And we've seen a success over and over and over doing this. So yeah, that's really it for me. I know I wanted to leave time for questions as well. So if there are any questions, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Tony.
Hey, how you doing?
Thank you so much.
No problem.
My apologies.
No problem.
What's going on about this wonderful conference? So Tony, I'll give you a quick one to get started. Was it? Anyone help?
Yeah. Hey, Tony.
Hey, John.
One question with the money, the announcement the Prime Minister came out yesterday, and there's I think $500 million for small business and enabling them. How do you think that BDC should be putting that money out? What's going to make the biggest difference for the small to mid-sized enterprises to really make a difference?
Yeah, there's a lot to digest with that big announcement. So John was talking about the federal announcement. And I think I would go back to the same place where my slides were essentially. I think and if you read through it, and I haven't read through the whole thing, Bob has, but everyday adoption is one of the key parts of it. And so you need to start there. If you skip that, you're missing out on the value because you're paying money for Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude Code, or whatever, and no one knows how to use it correctly. And there's just so much value in just doing that alone. Once you get that and you get past that, and by the way, it's not just I go do it and then it works. It's like an iterative process. You're going to get the early adopters. Then you're going to get the laggards eventually, but eventually everyone's kind of going to have some level of uplift from that. And then the other programs that are coming down the pipe are not as clear to me, but there's going to be opportunities to improve your business, improve your processes, and really have targeted wins. So yeah, I don't really know more specifically than that, John, but thank you for that question. Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience there? Yeah, right in the middle.
Thanks for the presentation. I'm curious what you think should be in an AI policy and the frequency of its refreshing or review.
Awesome question. So yeah, in an AI policy, what normally we do is Bob and I come in with a template because if they don't have one, they're not even really sure what's in it at all. But the elements are, you should have some principles. So we start off with kind of a high-level statement of the policy and why this policy exists. What are the principles upon which the policy is built? So the foundational elements. And these are just broad statements that are kind of obvious to most people. And then we get into kind of the tools. So what tools are endorsed? So normally we would have an approved tools list. So for example, Copilot is approved for this purpose, and it was approved on this date. You may have a specific ERM or something that has AI within it as well. So we're approving the use of that thing. So there'll be a short list. It shouldn't be too long for most companies. Then you get into the data classification part. So for this type of data, so very sensitive data, let's say you have social security numbers, very private data. That private data may or may not be able to be used in any of them at all, even if it's a private Copilot instance. And then medium classification and the most wide open data. And then you just kind of go through it that way. And then it's very clear what people can do and not do. It's just super simple stuff. It's all obvious stuff, and we like to write it in a language where everyone can understand it. It's not meant for the auditors, it's meant for the people actually using AI. Yeah.
Any other questions, thoughts? What? One over here.
Just curious on companies that have been running their business the same way for 20, 30 years, kind of without this technology. How do you get them over the hump or the fear of the unknown or them not understanding exactly what the implications are or what the benefits could be?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. So for companies that aren't really doing any AI, kind of maybe brick and mortar businesses that have been around forever, they come to us and they're like, we need AI. We know we need AI. But they really don't even know what that means at the beginning, to be honest. And so I think the most important thing is like you can't skip over analyzing the business. Like we don't come in and say, how much chatbot do you want to buy? We're like, tell us about your business. Tell us about how your business works. What are you doing? How do you want to evolve this thing over time? What are your key processes? You know, what moves the needle? What's dragging you down? So you can't get past that. You got to do the work. Like this AI doesn't change the fact that you got to go in the business and understand the business. And once you've demonstrated that you understand their business, you get that trust and you get that buy-in, and then you can do the education and you can build a foundation, and then just map it out for them. We build a roadmap for them. We usually explain the everyday adoption piece, but then we get into, if you're doing AI, you need a solid foundation. You need some kind of data to build it upon. And so, you know, data, security, and then AI kind of all together. And they usually get it because you're iteratively kind of working at it with them, and you build that trust over time. So, yeah, I think that's the basic answer. Yeah.
Merci, Tony. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
So again, my apologies for not being here at the beginning. Again, got caught up in something down below. But my name's Danny Silver. I'm a emeritus professor now at Acadia University, and actually started at the Institute for Data Analytics in 2014. So I've been doing this for some time now, working in these areas. Our next speaker is Ryan Proudfoot. He's with SmartSkin Technology. You may have heard the founder of that company speaking yesterday, and look forward to your talk, Ryan.
All right. Yeah, so I'm Ryan Proudfoot from SmartSkin. So today I'm going to talk about how AI has changed our product, the way we work, and how we're hiring. So right now, somewhere in the world, a can, a bottle, a vial, or a syringe is heading down a production line at upwards of 1,000 units a minute. One of those containers is ours. It's a sensor, a digital container twin that's pretending to be the product, recording everything that's happening to it. And that's what we make here at SmartSkin, right here in Fredericton. I'm Ryan, Chief Product Officer, and this is Tristan, our lead on our data engineering team. Between us, we'll walk you through the 3 things that AI has changed in the last couple of years in what we build, how we build it, and who we're hiring. So SmartSkin started out as a sensor company, and over the last few years, we've grown into a physical AI company. The names on this slide are some of the largest manufacturing companies in the world. I won't name them all, but they cross both pharma, food, and beverage, covering everything from injectables to beer, cans, soft drinks. They trust us to do one thing, and that's ride their production lines and tell them what their product is actually experiencing and going through. What's changed most for us recently isn't the sensors themselves, it's what we can do with it and everything that the sensors capture. So capturing, what a product physically feels like on a line was step one. And for years, that's the hard part. It's the thing our engineering team obsessed over. It's what we have exploited. And capturing that data, was never really the goal itself. The real product is explaining it. And that's really what AI unlocks for us. Explaining, these millions of readings that our sensors are taking every day, and telling, here's what's happening, here's why, and what to do about it. So that's, move from measuring to explaining is what AI has unlocked for us. And so, this is, show you what, a factory, in the past, no one could see before our product existed. You had blind spots. Quality control can check the machines themselves. They can check the quality of the product at the end of the process. But essentially, we're missing everything in between. Every squeeze that's happening, every grip, every drop, across dozens of stations from the start to the end across those production lines was invisible. And that's what our container tins close the gap. It measures and reports on exactly the real container experiences as it travels the line in real time. And that visibility is the foundation of everything else that we build on top of it. AI's changed 3 things for us, and we're going to walk through those one at a time here, starting with the product itself. Our product is becoming an AI. And so, this is just showing, the old version of our product. We've got sensors that collect raw data. Our software, drew charts. And then we had, skilled engineers, often our own people who are flying all around the world, helping our customers interpret those charts and, telling the customers what they meant. Customers got data that they'd never had before, new insights, but that data isn't the same as an answer. And that's really what AI helps unlock for us. So, as we're developing the new versions of our product, we're, changing that. The sensors feed our AI models. The software isn't just drawing a chart anymore. Often the best experience is no chart at all. Just tell them exactly, we saw an issue here. This is what you need to look at. This is how to go fix it. So, getting into detailed things of this head is gripping this container too hard. This star wheel's timing between the worm and the star wheel is off. You need to adjust it. Eventually we can get to the point of telling them which direction they need to adjust it. And really it's AI that unlocks all of that for us, and turning our subject matter expertise that we've built up over 10 years, our customers' expertise, and turning that into real usable insights, turning it from an instrument like a thermometer into a doctor. And that's really what AI unlocks for, on building our product. But, there's also the piece about how we build it. And that's where I'll pass it off over here to Tristan to talk a bit about that.
Thanks, Ryan. My name's Tristan. I lead data here at SmartSkin. Whenever I introduce myself to people, I say that I am the least professional leader you'll ever meet, so I apologize in advance. But yeah, so as a developer, I've got the perspective of actually, adopting AI within the team, trying to spread excitement and enthusiasm, and so we'll talk about it a little bit. I think everyone knows we don't write a whole lot of code anymore. Doing prompt engineering, figuring out exactly how to describe what you want. Everyone always talks about context and the perspective of from the perspective of the agent that you're talking to, having to compress your window. But we don't talk as much about the context for the developer. I've seen Ryan have 17 different PowerShell terminals open, trying to juggle all the context of the different things he's doing. And the AI can handle those contexts every time, but can the developer? Can the developer fully manage all of these threads in parallel? So I would do a whole talk on just this slide if I could, but I've included a tiny screenshot that is not a great representation of one of the tools that I use in my day-to-day that has helped me adopt the use of AI, which is called Multica. It's an open source tool that effectively acts like your own personal Jira or Trello board. You create tickets, you have a roster of workers, except instead of being real developers, they're all agents. So you can say, I've got 3 developers at my disposal and 2 product owners and a couple members of QA, and you can define your own orchestration the whole way through. You say, I'm going to create a ticket, and it's going to go straight to the orchestrator who decides whether it's best served by a data science person or a developer, and there's adversarial review rounds in QA. And so instead of juggling all these different tabs or different terminals I have open, I can actually go to my board and say, okay, great, these 3 tasks are in progress, and this one's on this step, and this one's on this step. It's entirely open source. You can self-host it. You can fully look at all of the chat history. So when you close your terminal, you don't fully lose the conversation you had. And so it's greatly helped me in my use. I've helped a few people on my team get onto it at this point. I want to spread excitement about it. But also in terms of context, we have to consider the fact that now that developers have so much more autonomy of what they can build, they need to be more aware of our business cases. So we've got a pretty strong partnership with a client in St. John that actually has one of the factories that Ryan has described. And so we've been working on forging an even deeper partnership with them where we can get some of our developers on site with them, physically seeing our product in action, being able to understand where our data comes from rather than just hand waving it and saying, oh, there's this conveyor line and there are packages that go down it, and we have a sensor that measures this. Being able to see it in real time. I grew up doing 4-H as a kid. Learn to do by doing was like the mantra, and that's invaluable. But as a developer, I also want to talk about the social aspects of adopting AI. One of the big things that comes up when I talk to my coworkers is job satisfaction, and everyone wants to have purpose and meaning in their job. A lot of people went into the industry because they loved programming. They loved solving problems. And when I went to university, I knew for a fact that I didn't want to be a lawyer because the idea of reviewing documents meticulously all day, every day, looking for mistakes sounded like a nightmare. And somehow that has become my job. So the question becomes, how do we stay happy in our jobs? How do we still get that purpose and meaning from what we create when a lot of people enjoyed the part that's being destroyed? And during our talk yesterday, one of our keynote speakers said, sometimes you have to destroy parts of what you understand to make room for new information and new growth. So if this is the way that we're moving, that's okay. We need to be able to find new ways to find that purpose and meaning, because that's important. The morale of the team and your coworkers is important. And I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I'm just saying these are all problems we need to solve because we aren't machines at the end of the day. And so one of the things that I think we're going to shift towards is, if the joy doesn't come as much from creating, I hope that the joy can come from an outsized impact. Being able to make more meaningful change than you have before, where if the process isn't there of guiding that AI, being able to make bigger things and seeing the changes real time as that happens. In a real use case, we had, I don't know if there's many developers in the room or if we're more research-based, but some of the worst days I have on the job is when I get to work and I'm ready to really power through a tough problem, and then I end up putting out about 7 fires from different coworkers where they say, oh, could I get a report for this customer, or this person's encountering an error, et cetera, et cetera. Those problems have largely gone away. So when a fire came in recently where we said, oh, we need to do a big set of data analysis for this customer, they need it very soon, that would normally take down the whole team, where we say we're going to all hands on deck this. One person is able to talk to AI, talk to Claude, and say, hey, customer needs this. I've got this paragraph or 2 of requirements. Rip at it. Go ahead. So being able to leverage AI to alleviate the burden on developers is extremely satisfying. And also being able to see the results of that immediately and feel good about a very real feature or product or deliverable that you can create, I think, for me at least, helps add to that satisfaction. But we've also had difficulties. So the bottleneck previously was development speed. I haven't heard anyone talk about it much so far yet at this conference, but there's also a new bottleneck, which is PR reviews. I've been flooded on social media about new ads of how to solve this problem. We've got this PR review problem. The human is the limiting factor. Let's add more AI. And if AI is the judge, jury, and executioner of all of this, where the AI is writing the code and self-reviewing the code and deploying the code, where is the human in the loop? How do we fix it? I don't have a great answer yet. But ultimately, we are going to keep finding new bottlenecks as we evolve to meet this demand. Previously it was development, now it's review. What's going to be next? There's always going to be a limiting factor. And eventually, maybe it's going to be requirements. And as I mentioned at the top of this, maybe developers need to be more context aware of the business case so that devs can be more autonomous and start generating their own ideas. Maybe customer feedback starts to become the limiting factor, where you're pumping out stuff faster than you can get feedback on it. But ultimately, when a developer can do the work of an entire team, as I was talking about Multica, I'm effectively running a team of agents at this point, and so can anybody. Do we need to hire fewer people? We think no.
Yeah, so, logic, and it's a bit of a surprise to us too, but, AI made each of us more productive, and not just amongst our development team, across the whole organization as different departments pick up these toolings, everyone is becoming more productive. But this doesn't shrink our to-do list. In fact, it's expanding our ambition and increasing our to-do list. The market that we could serve a couple of years ago is an order of magnitude bigger now because of AI. We can't really deploy or develop fast enough to reach the market that we have in front of us. And I think that is an opportunity not just at our own business but everyone. And so with every person able to do more, you don't want fewer people, you want more people doing bigger things. And that productivity is something that AI unlocks for us, allows us to move faster, expand the team, and work on harder problems that are more meaningful and have bigger upside. The work we do runs deep. We are doing firmware, signal processing, sensor fusion, real world physics, all the way up, packaging this up as an AI advisor that turns all of that into plain language answers. And there's a lot to go from 0 to 1 on that to make sure that those answers are meaningful. The advisor is exactly what's replacing those charts I mentioned earlier, turning the data into natural language that anyone can pick up our tool and get value out of right away.
So when talking about hiring, so we are always looking at co-op students and new graduates. For the sake of brevity, I'm not going to go through all of these points, but let's talk about the fun one, fluent use of AI tools. So this time last year, I was on UNB campus conducting interviews, and the question comes up, hey, this new AI thing's really starting to pop off. What do you think about it? And back then, it was an acceptable answer to say, oh, I've dabbled in ChatGPT, I've asked it a couple questions, it's created me a couple scripts. I don't know how I feel about it, it sometimes makes mistakes. And that was passable, that was fine. It was showing an awareness. And I've been back on UNB campus as recent as a couple months ago and doing interviews. And of course, the same question comes up in even more important contexts. And some people are still giving that answer today of saying, well, ChatGPT is pretty good, I use it a lot. And that is no longer acceptable. And those people, I worry, are falling behind the curve. If I have advice for anyone who's interviewing, nuanced takes about AI, and especially agentic coding, is effectively mandatory at this point. But and it's less about what your opinion is, but more about that you have put thought behind it. And one of the things that I find most interesting about interviewing, especially younger people, new grads, is that they never really know how to go at the talk about AI. They start off by saying, oh, I use AI all the time, it's great. And then they say, well, but I don't want you to think that it's all I do. Like I still know how to do things, so I don't use it all the time. And they worry about coming across as either as falling behind the curve or leaning on it too excessively. They don't know how to strike that balance. And I think having a nuanced take of saying, here's how I've integrated it into my workflow in a responsible way, is that missing piece to really show and demonstrate that understanding. So when we're doing that, that is what we are looking for when we hire. An awareness, it's almost a philosophy conversation about discussing how it is best used, rather than saying I like it or don't like it. Because we all know that that's not the case. We've talked about at multiple talks about how this is a tool and how best to apply it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so just wrapping up, to be honest about what AI, did not change for us is, that it still needs to be right. And, that's really important for a product like ours. We've got sensors going down production lines that are making medicine, that are putting food on your table. And, a confident, plausible wrong answer is actually worse than no answer at all. And so, the faster AI got, the standard for truth has not changed. And it's not moved an inch. So the single most valuable skill on our team as we look to hire is still the human ability to look at an impressive answer and ask questions, say, prove it, and dig in and validate. So that skill's become more important, not less. And yeah, I think we're at end of time here, so I'll just skip the last couple slides.
Thanks very much, Ryan. And sorry, Chris. Very good. Great talk. Really like that. I'm sure there's lots of questions actually out there. I'm guessing. Please go ahead.
Do you have an AI policy here?
Not officially, no, we do not.
Now, how would your relationship with your client and major corporations affect that? Do they come in and ask for a global policy? Would that help security compliance?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because we are both in the pharma space and the beverage space, and certainly in pharma, AI is a fine line to walk right now, and I mean, so it is. The FDA and other regulatory bodies are still sort of defining exactly what AI is allowed in these facilities, especially when you get into GMP use cases. One of the nice things about our beverage business is they have less concern about some of those things. And so as we develop new capabilities like AI or, really most of our new development, we start on food and beverage. We build the products, we prove out the use cases, we validate them, and then we bring them to the pharmaceutical industry. Where they're not as open to experimentation and new things. But yeah, certainly on the security side, we've gotten lots of questions increasing over the last few years, and fully expect AI policy to be the next thing that they're all asking for.
I'd love to interject one question here. Forgive me, but Tristan in particular, but I'm sure yourself as well. The yin and the yang now of using AI to develop code. Could you give your sense of when should students start to learn about using AI in developing code? Because you know the other aspect of this, right? Yeah.
Immediately.
Okay, but they have to be able to, as you
Yes,
said.
absolutely. And so one of my things that I've learned from talking to a lot of my colleagues is the fear that we're going to be a little bit lobotomized by AI. Even people who have 10 years of experience, who have been practicing these principles, are already feeling their skills start to stagnate and wane after leaning on these AI tools for so long. So I don't envy the students that are coming in these days. I'm actually not as familiar with rules around AI use in the classroom, but at least a working familiarity with it from the start, I think, is necessary. And like I said, when we're interviewing, and maybe I came off a little strong when I said, a nuanced take on AI is necessary to make sure that you have a solid understanding. But I'm not looking for experts, especially from students. I'm looking for awareness and at least keeping up to date of what's going on. So having those principled base levels of knowledge is still of utmost importance, because we are the judges of the AI's work. We are ultimately beholden to the work we put out. We cannot say, Cursor wrote this, Claude wrote this, Copilot wrote this, and so I am absolved of responsibility for if it goes wrong. That is still just as important as ever. So I don't know if that's actually an answer, but it's a tough question.
Just one more quick one up there. Yeah, go ahead.
So So I have just one question. Do you think that you would be interested to have a workshop at UMB for our students to keep them to the pace that how they should use AI and think more like engineers when they want to use AI and use coding?
You guys are giving easy questions. Absolutely. That would be it.
I wanted to get the awareness. Thank you.
Terrific. Let's thank both gentlemen. Thank you. Okay. Next up is Charles Gervais. He's with iTransformer, and he's going to tell us about Beyond AI Consulting, the rise of managed intelligence providers.
All right. So welcome, everybody. I'm Charles. I'm from Moncton. I've created iTransform in 2018. Work with over 200 small, medium enterprise doing planning and implementation of digital and AI projects. And this is a little bit what I want to share today is where I think we will be moving towards as a service provider. So welcome. So 4 months ago, we worked with a manufacturer who didn't even have an AI subscription. They were spending over $300,000 outsourcing their quotes because engineering calculations were too complex to do in-house. Each quote took 3 days, and their win rate was roughly 35%. They were essentially renting someone else's judgment, one quote at a time. So we didn't just build an AI calculator tool, we took a different approach. We combined two things, the expert judgment and their estimating history. So we look at their past quotes and we look for signals, patterns, and rules that really matter. Then we turn those into a quoting process that the company could repeat on and on every day. The result? 3 days became 15 minutes, and the knowledge stayed in the building. Very important. So that's the gap between using AI and actually owning intelligence. This is what I want to talk about today, not AI adoption, but a new delivery model. We call it managed intelligence. So to understand where we're going, we need to look at where we've been, okay? In the IT era, organizations need to build and run infrastructure. So system integrators were doing exactly that. In the cloud era, it kind of shifted. The infrastructure, they didn't want to run it anymore, so they wanted someone to do it invisibly, reliably, and at scale. So managed service providers just did that. But now we are in the AI era. And in the AI era, it's no longer, can we run? Can we build AI? Of course we can. AI is in almost every platform, right? So the question is now, can you make your organization smarter over time? Here's why most companies are still stuck. On one side, we have software vendors. They sell you the tool, maybe some training, and they leave. It's like handing you a hammer and say, go build a house, right? Good luck. On the other side, we have consultants. They study the problem, give you a nice plan, and they leave too. That's the 40-page blueprint, right? So AI needs something much more different. It needs someone who stays very close to the business. Someone who keeps learning how the work actually happens. But most importantly, that keeps the system up to date as changes occur. So that's a different type of a provider. Now, just to be clear, like we already talked about, there's consultants, there's vendors, there's IT managed service providers. These people are doing some stuff. There's a new provider now for deployed engineers, but most of them are doing a specific piece of the work I'm talking about. What I'm talking about now is owning the full decision memory loop of a business. capturing how the business makes good decision, make it reusable, and keep it up to date. This is the shift. That's a managed intelligence provider. They follow 3 simple jobs. First, capture what your best people know. Every company has those people, those experts who just know how things are just happening. The risky customers, bad numbers, the exception that really matters and make. But most of that knowledge is in their head. And what happens when they leave? That knowledge just goes away. Second, turn this tribal knowledge into rules that the people can really trust. It's not to replace people, but it's essentially to make their thinking a lot more visual, tangible, so others can trust it and use it too. And finally, keep learning. Every win, loss, mistakes, surprises should teach that system. That's the part that most companies are missing, that loop. The goal is simple. Build a system that helps today, learns from yesterday, and gets smarter tomorrow. So we built a simple demo just to make things real. We've used the same AI model, same RFQ, same job, okay? And the only thing that changed is what the AI knows about that business. So the first, we simply use out-of-the-box AI, generic public information, no company context at all. And it put out a nice estimate, like line items and everything, but very generic. What I want to focus on, it gives us a number of $370,000. Now, that sounds useful, and it's a starting point, but it's way too high for that market, okay? It was a New Brunswick market. This used national averages, and it's not really the way that the company actually price jobs. When we move to level 2, we've added the company's context, past projects, their pricing, branded templates, and their preferred subcontractors. So the number just dropped to $220,000. So that started to be more like a real bid. Right ballpark, right format, and honestly, they could probably submit this tomorrow. And a lot of business might say, wow, we've just adopted AI. But still, on this job, they would lose quite a bit of money because this level 2 doesn't know what we will see in level 3, what it's missing. Level 3, the number, in level 3, we added the tribal knowledge. So the things that the senior estimators, the expert, just knows. The edge cases, the unwritten rules, lessons from jobs that went really sideways, right? So now, the system caught things like it added a $14,000 for asbestos allowance because the building is from the 1980s, and 5 of the last 7 jobs that the company did, well, it required extra cash to attack this abatement. Also, the system recommended a different HVAC subcontractor. Why? Because the usual subcontractor doing HVAC jobs for them misdiagnosed those types of system before, twice. And it also brought things like win probability and bid strategy for that potential client that they're working on. So the final number went up to 254. So that's $34,000 more than the previous one. And that's the important part. It's not AI making a mistake. This is the price of judgment showing up in the number. So level 1 gave us a number, level 2 gave us a competitive number, but level 3 gave us a decision made from 25 years of accumulated company memory. Most AI tools are useful on day 1, but after that, they become stale. Just routine, it's okay. With managed intelligence, every decision becomes a chance to learn. On month 1, it helps. With the simple stuff, it saves time, people start using it. By month 6, it starts seeing patterns. It recommends the weird case. It remembers the weird cases. It starts catching things that your best people used to catch, but manually. And by month 12, it's not saving any time. It's not saving time anymore. It's giving the business a whole new level of guidance. Okay, better calls, fewer blind spots. So just imagine this. Your competitor has this type of system in place, and you don't. So after 1 year, the gap has compounded to almost an unfair advantage. The real advantage is not who has the better AI tool, it's who has built the best memory for their business. So 3 things I want to leave you with. 1, we need to find the person. Find a person that can understand the business, can earn trust, and can turn this judgment into something that AI can actually use. 2, capture one edge case. Not the whole business, not every processes, just one messy, repeatable decision, actions that your best people are dealing it and they know about how to tackle it. And number 3, test it. Just test it as a skill, right? Claude, skills, easy to do. Take one edge case and just try it. You will build some confidence. And once it works, don't keep it to yourself. Don't keep it an AI tool. It's now time to start thinking about an AI system. Individual tools are good, but when you're working in a company, you want to build an AI system. So you need to bring all of this together. Because AI tools do not make your companies smarter, but capturing judgment does. So stop deploying AI and start building intelligence. All right? Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Charles.
Super, thanks.
Question from the audience, please. I can get us started off here. So how do you know that an organization is ready for this managed provider service?
Yeah, so an organization is ready when they have this manual, repeatable, complex decision that requires constant learning. And also, when you're asking the question, what happens when an expert leaves, right? Just the cost of inaction of retraining somebody. When you start thinking this way, you start saying, we might be ready like yesterday. Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Fascinating. How light are these models in terms of updating? My question is, can you keep it in-house, or do you need to outsource this to a more powerful server where the training or the updating can happen?
Yeah, exactly. So right now we've done this in a manual way. We've built this what we call the cognitive engine. So, and this is all using internal servers and whatnot, but we want to package it up so that it's really compact and small for the business itself. We're not dealing with large organizations, just small. So I feel we could go there. This is our thoughts. So essentially, a little bit like Hussein was talking about, right? You call them what? Chronicles, yes. So my thought, my way of saying the same thing is we build a business memory. In there, we build memory packs. And these memory packs are edge case specific. And from there, what I feel, yes, you can chat and talk with your memory packs and with something more specific. But where I see this moving is the AI will simply push notifications, and we call them memory cards. So these memories will come when the business brain is connected with your existing system. It will listen, it will identify what decision is about to be made or made, and will send out some memories to different people, for the CEO, the operation manager, finance, right? All with different perspective of the same thing, so that when they regroup and talk about the decision, saying, oh, we might as well do something because we just brought everybody together. And by asking one question is, are you going to take my memory and my recommendation and change the decision that is about to be made? Or ask one question, what's different this time around? If you're going to go ahead and not follow my recommendation, what's different? So this is where we will get the real tribal knowledge at the decision point back into the system. So it will learn and get back to you.
Question on the talent profile, the people that you need to hire, the professionals that you are looking for to come in and work with you. What would you say, looking at what we have right now in computer science, in business development, what will be your ideal professional that you will hire that we need to make sure that we have them ready for you to hire?
Yeah, super. So I see this in different phases, but first, we did this kind of manually. Now I want to build this at scale, so we will need significant amount of intelligence and research to put this at scale. We just saw today, like with the talk, it's not there yet, but we will need significant amount of intelligence and research and time and dedication. Once the system is up and running, we will not need super PhDs in data and everything because the system will be built. We will just need business acumen and a lot of emotional intelligence to really work closely with the client and just make sure that the system is maintained, right? And so a lot of an hybrid between technology and business is where I see, and this is what I see that we are missing today. It's either one side or another, like the blend of technology and business could be elevated to another level at this point of what I'm seeing.
Okay, great. Well, thanks. Let your speaker once more.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is John Barry. John is a senior consultant here with the MNP in New Brunswick, and he's going to tell us about the importance of task level focus of using artificial intelligence, how it can help us understand better how that can be adopted.
Yeah, and I'm going to hope that I don't suffer the fate of Ryan in terms of getting set up. I got my tech support here. So I'm going to talk today about AI and how AI is enabling work at the task level. And I'll try to kind of pull together a lot of the thoughts that we have here today. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody in AI who's working in AI. They should hear the word task kind of coming up all the time. And it's the way that the industry really thinks. And for me, it was something that I had to really think about hard. And I'll tell the story of kind of how I started all this. Still sound unusual probably for some of you. It's very personal. So when I first started thinking I was going to go all in on AI, I decided that it didn't really matter to go all in on AI unless it mattered for the things that really matter in life. And for those of you who might pay attention to the Harvard Flourishing Index, I think it's the longest running study in history. And it's just a study really simply about what do people do who are really happy. So and for me, I said, okay, if I'm going to look at this and look at this and look at myself scientifically, I'm going to say, how would I actually do that for myself? And one kind of unique thing for those of you who are we're at UNB, so it's applicable. My daughter's here who taught me actually this. In the Atlantic Canada, predominantly we have this thing called the starflower, and it's unique. It's a 7-petaled. So in botany, most plants are 3, 5, or 8s. So we have this unique flower that's here that's really beautiful, and you can see it everywhere. So I thought it was a unique metaphor for Atlantic Canada. So in a company that goes across Canada, I purposely try to use that. So the punchline here is the only way I could figure it out for myself is that I had to decompose myself down to the task level. So what were the actual things I was doing so that I could actually influence the flourishing index? So that was my epiphany. And then part two, Tony was talking a lot about adoption. Everybody's talking about adoption. And in adoption, the realization for me is what Tony was saying earlier, that adoption does not equal value, and the capability does not equal usage. And Anthropic spends a lot of time, so the maker of Claude, that they have a very, very, really robust set of science that they use to produce the economic index. And the punchline is over in the image on the right, or the right for me at least. And it's what can AI actually do, which is the blue. And in the red is like, what are we actually doing today? And this is actual data. So the gap, and then again, I'll sit down on, MNP is a big firm across Canada. We serve mid-market Canada. So we're Main Street, not Bay Street. So for us, we care intimately about this because we need to move the needle with that part of Canada in order to change the productivity index of the country. So, when we did a survey just recently in the fall, and I do a lot of work with clients. The clients that are, as probably Tony and Bob were talking about, operational, or they claim operational, there's a really wide spectrum of what operational actually means. Everything from Tony and Bob would tell you is just playing around a little bit, and they say, oh no, we're operational in AI. But the ones who say they're transformational actually are. So if you really look at them, they said they really are transformational. And I say every study I see out there, doesn't matter the latest Stanford one, the McKinsey one, the BCG, they all say the same thing. There's a handful of companies that are actually pushing the needle on real results. By the way, I was really happy to see SmartSkin. You guys are trying to live the frontier, and I appreciate that. I do everything I can to listen to the people in Silicon Valley so that I can say, hey, where are we relative to what's actually happening out there? So when I started looking at our own firm and our clients, it became apparent to me they had to look at it across three areas. The organization, how we actually deliver projects inside the organization, and then process. How does work actually flow? Again, Bob and Tony talked about that in a micro example. They're trying to break down the company into all these pieces in one shot when they go out and talk about the business. And that image you guys put up on the whiteboard is basically a big plan of what's actually going on in a company. And so for me, the most critical things, and I've highlighted them there, are role. So what job does somebody have? What are the domains of expertise they have, the subdomains, and then how does that break down to tasks? And if we can't give somebody in their job a roadmap for what to do, then how do you expect them to change? And so this is just a big, giant change management issue. Tristan, I see out there, you're living it at SmartSkin. It's not easy. Like even in software dev that has transformed completely in the last 6 months, it's still hard. Not everybody is changing right now. So if you don't give people the chance to change, then you can't expect the organization to change. But if you change it at that role level, it's going to flow up to the organization. Same thing on a project. We were trying to change the way we deliver work, and it's really hard inside of our company. So we look at a project, and the only way we could start moving the needles when we broke it down to the task level. And when you looked at those tasks, and then who's doing those tasks, and then how does AI enable those tasks, suddenly we could move the needle on the projects. So those things are really important. And then process. Everything, how many times have people hear use case out there? I have this great disdain for the word use case now, because it doesn't get down low enough. So I see people prioritize use cases, and then I just did this with a big client. They had their 45 use cases, and they had them all prioritized, and I looked at them and I said, yeah, I don't think this is probably right. And so I said, I'll do the work. I broke it all down into the task level, reprioritized the whole thing, gave it back to them, and they couldn't believe the difference. But it was a real difference, so it changed entirely the way they were thinking about what they were going to do. So I think it's really important to get down low enough so they understand how the work's actually going to change. So I did it to myself, as I said at the beginning. This is actually me. So to take you through what I did, so I took what Anthropic produces. I just said I'm a partner in a professional services firm, and it gave me back the number of tasks and the domains of work I had. But by the way, it's super accurate. So right out of the gate, almost any job that anybody in this room probably does, Anthropic can give you back the data right away. I have people in this room that I work with who nod their head because they know, because I can do it with them, and you can do it fast. Then you take your graph, in my case, we use Microsoft. So I took our Microsoft graph data, which is actual me, where do I spend time, how many Teams messages, my calendar, basically how I'm working. I'm a big user of Claude, so I had to take my Claude data too, by the way. So I took all those, threw it in, and just said, okay, where am I spending my time? And that's what these outputs. And then I said, okay, the thing that I really want to know is how much time can I get back, and how do I redirect that time to things that actually matter? So that was the whole goal of the flourishing index, and at work, of course, it's on the things that I want to work on or spend more time on. And then I did write some software. Tristan, you'd be proud of me. I haven't written software since I was 19. True story. And so the unlock code for me, by the way, was that, yeah, I can write software again, man. Like, even though people like Tristan would I'm sure critically appraise it, if you're thoughtful about it, and I like to think I'm thoughtful enough that I write it in Claude Code, and then I have Codex knock the hell out of it, and then I check it with Gemini and I come back and I say, okay, it's probably okay, or it's good enough that I can get it. Anyway, right, this one I thought an agent-based interview was the only way it could scale at the small to mid-sized enterprise. So everything is about scaling. So how do you make this low cost enough that you can actually move the needle with smaller companies meaningfully? So an agent-based interview is the way to kind of, not remove the human. We still have judgment in there for sure. And in fact, when I do this, the human becomes even more important. It's just that they're doing different things and they're able to do it faster. So the big one, this is me, by the way, and what's interesting on this is that, like, I'm trying, and look how far away I am from leveraging AI. I still have, according to this, if I believe it, 50 hours, 49.7 hours left to kind of capture from using AI effectively. And that's with somebody who's actually really trying. So it was a wake-up call for me as to how big the gap really actually is, even for someone who's actually given it a big shot. In the context of trying to transform an organization, most organizations understand strategy, and they usually understand it fairly well. And then they understand even how that strategy translates down to the type of capabilities, right, or the future operating model they want to get to. Not all get there, by the way, but the ones who really try do. But for me, it was sticking with me that if you didn't actually understand the work at the ground level, the task, then I didn't understand how you were going to translate that up. And especially when the tasks and AI is changing how tasks are going to be done all the time, how the heck are you going to actually infuse that into the organization? So for me, that was a big realization of, geez, if you don't marry up tasks or understand tasks, then how are you actually going to have a continual monitoring of what's actually happening? I'll tell the story about a proposal manager. So amongst other things that I did, I led all of our, what we'd call our client services team, which was our proposal team. And they spent a lot of time project managing, probably not surprising to a lot of you here. And probably not as much time thinking. And our best proposal manager, I would challenge her, I want you to get better, I want you to get better, I want you to get better, use AI to get better. So we started in earnest when ChatGPT came out and was viable. So it's a long time coming. And then when I was working with her on this, she came in and she said, look, John's probably figured out how to automate me right out of existence now. So she was actually kind of nervous. She went through the process with me and she came out and she was thrilled. So for her job was way better. She was way more secure in her job, and all the kind of crappy parts of her job were going to go away. So all the things that we recognized her or celebrated her for, the taskmaster, the project management, those things that we actually even valued were actually not the things that we should value. So the things that we should value is her intelligence, her ability to bring content, to write it in a coherent way, to understand the client. And I'm really proud of her because she's doing that now. So she's writing things that are way better than my partners write, and winning proposals as a result. So that's, I think, what you want. That's like the elevation of the job and the human side of this thing that's really important. I said this already, and I told the story that's on here. I'll just say, you got to think in terms of a GPS now. Most companies think like a map. Hey, here's my strategy, and here's where I'm going, and here's how we're going to do it. We live in GPS land now because AI is going to change things all the time. So if we're not ready to understand what to do when the roads keep on changing, then you're not going to be ready to live in AI. So we're all on a treadmill. I call it the learning treadmill, but that everybody is now on. Used to be just us in tech, now it's everybody. And I'll end on this. I'll just say that if we don't change work, at the level at which it actually happens, that task level, then we shouldn't expect that it's going to change. And I think the key thing and the key lesson I'm trying to expound here is it's that understanding what those tasks actually are, and then how AI enables it, then how you're actually going to make that change that really matters. So if we're going to move the needle for Canada, and the announcement yesterday was kind of good timing, and get the productivity lever, I should say, that's available from AI, and what I think our Prime Minister and what Evan Solomon, our Minister, are trying to get at, then I think we got to do this work. I think we got to get down to the ground level and understand it, and really figure out how we're going to move things forward as a country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great. Sure, we got some questions. Out there? Sure.
Thanks for the talk. That was great. Love that you're eating your own dog food and being the guinea pig. And I'm just curious. You talk about doing it at the role level, but the organization has lots of roles. What challenges do you foresee in scaling this up to take on an entire organization as opposed to one role at a time?
Yeah, that's a great question. The way I see it is, if you get to a role, everything breaks down. So a role rolls up to a department typically. Typically, departments are, if they're well run, and we know how many people typically manage a team, right? It's usually 4 or 6, probably no more than 8. Otherwise, you're starting to get out of control. But so looking at 4, 6, or 8 people in the roles, and then how do those roles all work together inside of a team? I would say what I've seen when we do it internally, and I see some of our team members trying to hire or say, okay, I lost somebody, I'm going to replace them. The first thing that comes to mind is like, well, if you don't understand it at the task level and what impact AI is going to have, how are you going to hire that person? So I would say it rolls up very real, starting at that department layer, right, or that team layer, and then it keeps going up from there. So I would say I don't think I would challenge any team member or team leader when they're replacing somebody or they're losing somebody to say, how are you actually going to do that, given where things are going?
Other question? Well, I've got one for you. So the study, the analysis of a task sequence, and subsequently the determination if AI can be applied to a task, we could say is a task. So we could say it's a task.
Yes.
So at what point do you see AI taking that on eventually? Or is this not an area?
Yeah, where's the boundary on AI determining what a task actually is? Is that kind of along the lines of what you're asking? Yeah. Especially with agents, it's a great question. Probably a deep one, or probably a deeper one than I'm capable of answering. But I still think it actually right now is increasing the requirement for humans. So like the whole way I built the methodology and trying to have an agent-based interview that does a really good interview about how people really work. You can't get at it if you're just looking at the data. You actually have to understand how people really work. You have to get at the human side. So there's a very human side to this. That manager that you're talking about on the team side, they're going to have the judgment to figure out how all those roles fit together and how all that data fits together, because they're going to understand the culture, the work, the people side of it. So I think right now it's elevating the people side. And agents in general, I think, is probably the kind of modern realization, I'll say, the current realization is that as more and more agents are coming online, as people are managing agents, and so it's actually increasing the requirement for humans, the human side of stuff right now, which is positive, by the way. That's my optimistic view on AI right now.
Any other thoughts or questions? Oh, a couple back here.
So, actually, I came from the IT and AI background, and I work for some IT or big data platform project. So every time I'm asked the teams that what's the task that annoy you or consume most resource, and they always say the data integrations and data cleanings, data mapping between different platforms. So then the next question that came up, can we try some automation or AI to reduce those tasks? And always they look like, oh, can we do that? We are not sure because there was a lot of mess in the data lake. So do you have any advice for this part of optimizations?
Yeah, I'll try to repeat it back. And Danny, if you could clarify where I missed it, because I couldn't hear everything, was on the data side or data engineering side, and whether or not we can get at the tasks of fixing the data. Let's just call it. Is that more or less the gist of it? Yeah, it's Tony identified it. It's the core challenge is the state of people's data. You can't really do a lot with AI if you can't trust your data. So there's a lot of, I would say this is the job of the business. It's currently the job of the data engineer, but the business has to take ownership of their data in order for that, to make sure that data is actually true. It's kind of empty if the business comes back and IT does all the work and sends stuff up to and then they say, oh, I don't believe it, which I see every day. So I think that that is still hard work. I do think that there's a lot of enablement that's happening on the data side of the equation with AI. And it's critical, I think, to actually extracting value.
Okay, thanks very much, John. Let's applaud our speaker. Okay, our final speaker is Dr. Robert Chen. I've known Robert for some time. He's actually been working with a graduate student of mine on a very interesting project. He's a pediatric cardiologist in Halifax. And I think you're going to find this a very interesting deployment of artificial intelligence and a sign of things to come.
All right, let's see if I can get this relatively straightforward technology to work. Just going to lower this for somebody short like me. All right, let's see. How about we screen mirror, and then hopefully you can see my screen. Is that about right? Excellent. All right. So let me just get myself organized. It's tough when you're old. Everything's too far away, and yet nothing's close enough. So good morning, everyone. My name's Robert Chen, as Dr. Silver has so kindly introduced me, and I represent Cardio Diagnostics. We're a company that utilizes machine learning to try and develop healthcare tools for primary care medicine to augment their skills in physical assessment. So we serve as a decision support platform. And we did this out of, the whole healthcare crisis thing, and it was literally a COVID project, as many of these are. But before I dive in, I just wanted to really sincerely thank the organizers of the summit and Danny Silver for this invitation. It's really an honor to be here and to speak to you. And so my job today is to try and explain to you how we might catalyze a paradigm shift in primary healthcare. Specifically trying to move away from the defensive medicine that we practice in primary care to one of precision triage, which is ideally the goal of the family physician and primary care providers today. In our current system, we really shouldn't be blaming physicians for this problem that we have. They are actually, as primary care providers, operating in a system that really penalizes them because they can't afford to make mistakes. And their only way out is to make referrals. And unfortunately, the only way to break that pattern is to change the workflow altogether, right? Their time constraints and their administrative burdens essentially has eroded their ability to provide hands-on diagnostic skills that they actually should have. And our training programs are also contributing to that just because of the overwhelming abundance of knowledge that is out there for medicine today. So as generalists, they can't really maintain specialization in every area. And so in order to combine that broad generalization with all the time constraints, the only thing you can see happen is that you get an erosion of these foundational skills. And so they are actually in this system and in a process that results in the collapse of what we call specificity of diagnosis. In other words, they're becoming less and less capable of making a diagnosis of normal, which then leads to a lot of referrals of healthy people to a tertiary care system, which is extremely expensive. And indeed, 30% of medical testing, imaging, consultations in Canada are unnecessary. All right? So across the maritime provinces, that represents $1.7 billion annually. It's not a huge amount of money in terms of healthcare, but that's not an insignificant dollar value. And where does that number come from? Well, in the Maritimes, roughly $12.6 billion are spent each year on healthcare. Of that, 45% is spent essentially in tertiary care, providing services in hospitals and specialist services, basically. So obviously, those are the people and the structures that are delivering the care to the referrals coming from primary care. So if you think about that, and you say roughly 45% of that amount is then $5.7 billion, and if 30% of that is unnecessary, that's how you get $1.7 billion of systemic money that's just drained away from the system. All right? And at the same time as wasting all this money, we're also flooding all these tertiary care offices with all these unnecessary healthy patients, preventing the delivery of care that actually needs to happen. So it turns out that pediatric cardiology, which is what I do, is actually a great microcosm of this problem. And this is how this all came about. Differentiating a lethal structural heart defect from healthy hyperdynamic circulations just by listening is actually an incredibly nuanced, highly skilled task that's challenging for anyone that is not trained as a pediatric cardiologist, really. And so because primary care providers lack confidence in their ability to do this task, they're forced to refer more than 50% of all the people they listen to. And yet, roughly 1% of them have something wrong. So this is why specificity is so important. Because epidemiologically, statistically, if you start trying to work those numbers and you're trying to pick up the disease without being specific, you're going to refer the majority of your patients in order to find the few that are abnormal while still missing a whole bunch, right? So it is really the ultimate example of well-intentioned defensive medicine clogging up the specialist services. So we came together, myself, Dr. Santok Dhillon, and Shamir Iqbal, because we have an understanding of cardiac acoustics and physics, and Shamir has a wealth of knowledge in artificial intelligence, and we thought we could make a difference, and we could change this by converting what we know as clinicians into an AI platform that would do the job that we do. Unfortunately, it's doing a better job than I am at the moment. But having said that, it is able to achieve a sensitivity of over 85%. So its diagnostic ability is better than a cardiologist for picking up disease. Its specificity is somewhere in the order of 91%, which way exceeds most cardiologists, and certainly any primary care provider. Primary care providers function at a sensitivity of about 70%, with a specificity of 30% or less. So you can imagine what that does to your referral base. It becomes huge. So we solved that problem by developing this AI, and it's shown that in real-world data, we tested it on open source data from PhysioNet and then our own hospital data that we've gathered over a couple of years. We were able to show that it performs consistently at a very high level. I'm not going to go through the science of all of that because I don't think that's necessary. But this model really challenges our concept of what a primary care physician should be able to do with decision support. It says that perhaps they can actually achieve really high performance and still deliver excellent care. So with the 91% specificity, we can stop these unnecessary referrals. And we still don't miss any more disease than we did before. So that's all well and good. What does that mean to us economically, though? Because as much as we in medicine want to help people, We have to make it economically viable in this environment. And so we actually created a number of models to try and look at the cost savings of doing this using funnels of attrition, various modeling. And what we were able to show is, sorry, I get carried away with my talking. Anyway. Yeah, you should have prompted me. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. I sometimes free flow too much. It's a problem in my life. All right. Anyway, so when we created these models, we essentially eliminated any kinds of societal sort of contributions to cost benefit. A lot of times you see people, adding to their cost analyses. Look, the amount of travel saved by families, how much they didn't have the time to take off work, and all of that. Well, that's all well and good. But in fact, in our healthcare system, the government doesn't pay for that. So there's no point in modeling that because that's not going to help our healthcare budget at all. So what we did was we looked only at the benefits of $600 for every referral that was unnecessary in order to pay the cardiologist and pay for an echocardiogram. All right? And based on that, deploying this AI model, AI system, we predict that you would save at least $5.8 billion if you captured everybody. So this would be a global screening program, all right? And you would still save $5.8 million. You would eliminate roughly 9,500 unnecessary visits. And despite that, you would pick up an additional 23 patients who actually had heart disease they would have previously missed. So that all sounds great, right? But data is not always that great. In fact, 20% of data is bad. In a pediatric clinic, kids are screaming, crying, wanting to be fed, running around. How do you record from these patients? So 20% of them you can't record. So in most AI implementations, people have done what they said is, well, the AI is just going to have to figure it out and guess, all right? We don't believe that's a good idea. Because when you actually look at this population of what we call unknowns, in other words, unclassifiable data, it turns out 63% of them have pathology. So in fact, this inability to record is a biomarker for pathology. So you can't just ask the machine to guess, because then you're going to miss a whole bunch of patients. So we instituted this idea of what we call a two-strike rule. And this two-strike rule allows us to then pick up these 63% that are going to be otherwise missed. In other words, if you try to record on a patient twice and you aren't successful, that's an automatic referral to cardiology. And 63% of the time, you're going to be right. So that's a pretty good deal, considering prior to that, your success rate at getting a positive out of a referral was less than 1 in 10, right? So how do we implement this? And I think that's what we're here all about today. How do we get this to happen? Well, none of this happens overnight. And in fact, at this stage in the game, I would say the technology piece, the part that cardiodiagnostics and our clinical and engineering teams have put together, that's the easy part. The hard part is now, how do we implement this in the real healthcare system? And what I would challenge governments today is say, look, if we are truly committed to adopting AI as a national agenda, well, then we have to put our money where our mouth is, and we have to start investing in pilot projects. Because projects like this one are not going to just naturally move into the clinical realm. Medicine, as you know, is highly regulated, and reasons for that are obviously obvious. But, in order to proceed, we need to get these into the healthcare system. So what do? We need to start piloting stuff like this. This, we know, works. So how do we get it out to our patients? And so we need to start these pilot projects. And these pilot projects are what's going to allow us to uncover the hurdles that are ahead of us that we don't even realize are there yet. We still got problems with how are we going to bill for this? How are you going to work the workflow for capturing all this data? How are you going to get the data into the system? How are you going to put this data back to the physicians and make sure it's all collated properly? All of those questions need to be answered. And we need to step up and start working on that. And so this is one of the projects that we have going now, is trying to start some pilot projects in Nova Scotia, in Newfoundland, hopefully in New Brunswick. And I think that, with that, we will probably be able to move forward in terms of actively engaging with AI and be able to spread this kind of technology. You know, this Murmur project is only one little bit of a huge problem. It is $5.8 billion. We have the opportunity to save $500 million in the maritime provinces by streamlining healthcare. So if we expand this right now for cardiodiagnostics, ECG, screening adult valvular heart disease, heart failure, well, those are going to have larger and larger impacts. But as usual, we always start with, you know, lowest hanging fruit for success. So what we need to do now is advance this. And as we move one of these little projects forward, we will start to see these other ones come on stream at exponentially faster and faster rates so that we can recoup this lost money that we're seeing every year. All right? Anyway, thank you so much for your time, and I'll leave it with Dr. Silvers.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chen. Fabulous. Questions? One right here.
Thank you very much. Less of a question, more of a comment. So I'm Roxana Sultan, Vector Institute for Artificial Intelligence. We have built an entire health AI program specifically focused on how we can bridge between innovative startup companies doing brilliant things in the life sciences space and deployment and implementation in healthcare. And this is something that we're working to try and drive out with provinces and territories across Canada. So I'm very excited to see this innovation, the work that you've done. I think there's incredible opportunity for scalability of these types of solutions. So please connect in with your AI, National AI Institutes. We are here to support exactly this type of innovation. So congratulations on a great job.
Thank you so much. That's most kind. But yeah, and I totally agree. I think those kinds of processes and programs are critical in the growth of AI in Canada today. The other thing too is, you know, if we're going to build trust in AI, we're going to need these pilots. We're going to need to spread the knowledge about AI and help people understand the literacy of AI. Because I think everyone who talks about AI today thinks of LLMs and thinks about generative AI. Well, you know, this has nothing to do with generative AI. This is truly deep machine learning. And it's a very different concept compared to these other ideas around artificial intelligence. And yet it all gets lumped together. Yeah, so I think the work that you guys do is admirable, and I will certainly try and get in touch with you.
We had one more question. I was going to ask it for you. First off, thanks for the work, and it's hard work. I think I caught that you think the change management is the hardest part. If you're going to try to pinpoint that change management, where do you think it is? Is it in the doctors? Is it in the regulatory system? Is it in the leadership, politicians? I'm just saying, where does the effort need to be applied?
Yeah, so you know, it's interesting because the whole process of trying to implement these kinds of AI technologies in healthcare, the friction comes largely from, at the moment, the spread of technology. But the good thing in Canada is we are a, quotes, one-payer system. And honestly, if you have political will and you have data to support that you are going to make a societal difference, I think the way forward is not to go to the doctor, go to the manager, go to the CEO. The way to do it is to directly deal with the Department of Health and the government and to actually educate them on the benefits of and economics of this. This is just why I did this, is to try and spread the word that the economics of this is not just small. In fact, one of the things that I hear a lot, because I work in pediatrics, is, well, there's no money to be made in pediatrics. You know, why are you doing this? You're not going to make any money from this. Well, what I can tell you is despite saving $5.8 million a year in the Maritimes, cardiodiagnostics is going to do just fine. And so there is no reason why we should not be actually implementing this kind of technologies and spreading it. Yeah.